Alright, hey guys, welcome back to the video. This is going to be a little bit of a recap of the Saints 34-0 loss to the Rams on this past weekend, and it's going to be projected finish of what's going to be the 53-man roster, considering that we are literally less than a week away from that initial 53 going to be set. But before we get into that, brief little glimpses on how this past weekend's game went. The Saints defense give up over 400 yards of offense to Stetson Bennett and Ty Simpson, just carving through the defense, having no sense of pass rush, no sort of momentum coming in from the Jacksonville game, where you had defense step up, be able to show that maybe you have some sort of youth movement coming in the secondary and on the D-line. None of that really came to fruition in this game. You had Zach Wilson, who ended up starting after having a very strong start in the second half against Jacksonville last week. He only goes 6 for 12, 55 yards, and a bad interception, where he and Bub Means are not on the same page on a short little curl route, maybe 5 to 8 yards. It gets picked off underneath on the inside, which ends up leading to the first of the Rams' eventual touchdowns, the first of Stetson Bennett's 2 touchdown runs. There is a few little tidbits that actually was somewhat promising. You did get Kendra Miller and Devin Neal back. Unfortunately, Devin Neal got hurt again, which comes into another issue I'll speak of. Kendra Miller did show a bit of burst, 6 carries, 22 yards in his limited playing time, and really did feel like he solidified himself to at least make this roster as long as he ends up staying healthy. That's a different factor on Devin Neal, and we'll get there. But going into the second half, you have Spencer Rattler coming in, leads a few nice drives, getting CJ Donaldson a couple catches and a few nice runs, including a 32-yard catch near the sidelines that he's able to break a couple tackles, get it near the red zone, just for a pass from Maliki Mataval to get moved all the way, intercepted, return to the end zone for pick 6. And then to top it all off, you have Ty Chandler fumbles near the end zone in goal line attempt. Lastly, if we're trying to figure out a little bit of the kicking situation between Charlie Smith and Tanner Brown, the incoming rookie from the UFL, Brown misses a 40-yard field goal to end the game, so the Saints get shut out, even though they had 3 legitimate chances to score in the second half. So at this point, there seems to be more questions than answers, and we have one more preseason game to go. We have not seen really any of the starters. There's been a few highlights here or there on this game. Martin Emerson, a few nice breakups, even though he was targeted a lot in the first team defense, at least whenever Stetson Bennett was end up starting. Isaiah Stallbird is showing some nice coverage, some nice hit to the ball, doing well to wrap up. So he's one where it's like you can at least tell he's at least going to be a depth piece, whenever you're probably going 5 deep. But really, at this point, you have your 53-man roster of what's projected, starting off with the quarterbacks. If you had seen Zach Wilson be able to show a little bit in that first half, then you'd be able to say very likely he has a shot for getting that backup position. You can at least say with Rattler, he had 3 possessions where they either made it to the red zone, where they should have come up with at least some sort of points. Rattler, they're likely still going to go with the one who's experienced with the play calling, Kellen Moore. At that point, they're just going to keep the 2 quarterbacks. Now, the running backs, you do have for the fact that Alvin Kamara is going to end up being out for a month. Travis Etienne is going to be the starter. Kendra Miller did show enough in this game to show that he is expected to be that 3rd back. The disappointment on seeing Devin Neal get hurt. Again, he would have been one that be in place. There's also, you have Audric Estime, who was the 3rd back. And for the fact he was expected to be the 3rd back, potentially behind Achane and Kamara. But he's hurt as well. So what the Saints end up doing, they go to San Francisco. They trade old LSU favorite Deion Jones for just a 1-to-1 trade for former 5-star recruit going to Georgia, Zamir White. So at this point, I'm saying that Zamir White probably is going to make the team because he has experience. They bring in a couple Raiders off of this, and the last time they did a trade, a one-on-one for a trade, that was last year whenever they traded for Luke Fortner, traded Kalen Saunders to the Jaguars, and Fortner ended up making the team as a backup center, where you had Saunders conveniently come back to the team this offseason. Apparently no bad blood. So if Audric Estime ends up getting healthy, I could see this potentially changing. Also, depending on if they're going to make Alvin Kamara on the injury reserve to return, potentially they can get Devin Neal to come back or Audric Estime to come back. But also with the fumble with Ty Chandler, Yes, he was supposed to be a special teams guy, but I do think at this point he has to show something if he really wanted to stay on the team. And besides that one kick return to start the Jaguars game last week, hasn't really shown too much. Now, the receivers, on the other hand, while Jordan Tyson's going to be on IR to return, there was a thought that was going to do just 5 receivers, but for the fact that a lot of the younger players between Lance and Brown, and the fact that Bub Means probably has been the most effective receiver out of anybody who's been playing in these first 2 preseason games, I do think Means is going to end up making the team, and Trey Palmer as either a backup to the kick returns or punt returns, or the fact of having someone else to take the top off of defense, because Olave and Vele are more short to middle of the field. Bryce Lance, they haven't shown him any portion of getting deep either. Probably has a good chance of coming in with a bit of that local flair as well. Tight end, this has been kind of consistent throughout all training camp. It's been 3 guys: Jawan Johnson, Oscar Delp, Noah Fant. Ever since Delp was drafted and Noah Fant was signed in free agency, this was going to be your 3 guys. Yes, there was potential for Maliki Mataval, who has shown good things in training camp and in a couple preseason games. There's potential that he could go on the PUP list to return, or a potential injury issue from there. But for now, you have your 3 tight ends. Off the line, the top 5 are pretty straightforward. Kelvin Banks, Talasi Fuaga in 24-25, the top 2 first-round picks that we got last year. Eric McCoy, Cesar Ruiz, and David Edwards, the big signing they got in free agency from the Bills at left guard. Now, one thing on this entire preseason game against the Rams, their backups got worked nearly every play. Asim Richards is going to be the direct tackle backup to Banks. Barry Wesley, same thing for Talasi Fuaga. Then you have Jeremiah Wright, who had probably the biggest highlight, low light as well, wherever he showed over aggressiveness, saying after the play, trying to get a block off of his receivers. They called him for a 50-yard penalty in that first possession. Really ended up stalling out the drive, but that is the most aggression I saw out of any Saints offensive lineman in that entire game. The rest of it, William Sherman is going to be the most versatile piece that they have on the team, at least off the line. He can play all positions on the line, so that versatility will give him a likely spot to get in. Easton Kilty, very good chance he could be that backup center to McCoy. With his tendency of getting hurt, his ability to do center or either guard spot, that does make it to where he could end up making that roster. You don't really feel too confident on if anybody on the front 5 get hurt. So there may be a possibility that someone gets cut here after that initial 53 and they bring someone else from someone other's cut squad or someone else's 53-man roster. Then going on to the defense, you have, hopefully Cam Jordan's injury for his hamstring isn't too bad, which is why I gave a little bit extra on his for a full 10 as well for O-line and D-line. You have your starting 4, very likely Chase Young, Devon Godshaw, Nathan Shepard, Carl Granderson. That's pretty straightforward. If Christian Miller ends up showing more progression and ends up staying healthy, Miller could step into that starting rotation. You have a couple others who are more fringe guys based off of Tyree Wilson and Anthony Jennings, the edge rushers. Wilson sometimes being put in the middle as a D tackle, and then John Ridgway as a longtime vet. So, and that's your full 10 from there. Linebackers, pretty straightforward. Your starting 3, Pete Werner, Caden Ellis, Danny Stutzman, whenever they get their 3 linemen, whenever they get 3 linebackers in at this point. And then you had Isaiah Stallworth, one of the most impressive linebackers who played for the Saints, which isn't saying much, and Jalen Ford. Same thing with Stallworth, both of them being strong special teams acquisitions, so they'll be able to work in special teams consistently. And Ford had an interception in that first Jaguars game, so both of them likely going to be those depth pieces. Now, with the defensive backs, we already know Kool-Aid McKinstry is going to be one of the number 1 corner that we have. Is that the best option for us to have? Maybe not, but Kool-Aid still is the best defensive back we had. Martin Emerson did show signs, good and bad, against CJ Daniels, amongst the other Rams receivers. Quincy Riley did start a good bit of last year's season, so once Isaac Yiadom got hurt, at that point, you got to see a little bit more of a youth movement from there. Then you have your starting secondary safeties, Justin Reed, Jalen Blackman. Whenever you have a star position for that slot corner or that box safety, that's likely going to be Jonas Sanker. Wherever they go with the 5 DBs at that case. And then the rest of them lines up. Lorenzo Styles, Jordan Howden, TJ Hall, Jaden Price. Then you have special teams where the second of the 2 Raiders signees came in this week. You had Tanner Brown miss a field goal in the second game. You had Charlie Smith end up missing a field goal in the first game, hooking it hard right. What the Saints end up doing, they go after one of the 3 things that the Raiders franchise has been known for the past 10, 15, basically since the 2000s. It's Brock Bowers, it's Max Crosby, and it's kickers. And unfortunately, they did not get the first 2. So they'll just have to settle with Daniel Carlson, a very high echelon family in kickers out of Auburn that all have strong experience within the NFL. His brother is with the Packers, so Carlson coming in, I do think with his experience, is going to end up beating out both Charlie Smith and Tanner Brown for the job because neither one of them really have been able to separate at this moment. Then Ryan Wright, they got from Minnesota with a sizable contract for the punter, considering that since they got rid of Thomas Morstead, they really have not been able to find anyone who's been consistent in the punting game. And then Zach Wood's been with the team for a while, so that's going to end up finishing out your 53. But tell me any other moves you would think we would make, anything that you would change off of that 53-man roster of what we do have on there, any surprises, anything else you would like to add off of it. If there's anybody from any other team that could potentially join this franchise that could have come to help, let me know, see what you think. Leave any mention in the comment. I know the idea of the Saints were potentially wanting to look for Kayshon Boutte to go trade from the Patriots at this time, but for the fact the Texans came up and snatched them away with the injury issues that a lot of the wide receivers have had, some of the skill position targets, it would have made some sense, especially with the local ties as well. But at this point, he's with Houston. They have injury issues as well. Jaden Higgins and then Tate Dell coming back off an injury that missed all last year. So a little bit more proven piece in that end. But thank y'all for watching. More Saints video coming out soon. More college football coming out. This video probably will come out a day or 2 earlier, if not for these last 2 signings that end up coming on, and Tulane actually settling on a starting quarterback, so I felt like something had to be added on with it. But yeah, thank y'all for watching. More videos coming soon. We're 2.5 weeks away from the start of the NFL season. I'll see you in the next one.